Hello, welcome to Recapping with Delora
and Ashley.
Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Recapping Podcast.
Also, comment, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We're on all the things.
We would love to hear your ratings of the movies and shows we review.
Email us your audio file to recappingpodcast@gmail.com and we will play it during the show.
Or DM us on Instagram and we will post and read it on air.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you. Hey, Ashley.
Hey, girl. Hey.
So there's a song in my spirit right now.
Okay, sing it to me.
Ding dong.
Is this from The Wizard of Oz?
Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
I am proud to announce that Meghan McCain is leaving The View.
Dang, we calling Meghan the Wicked Witch of the West out here.
The way she was acting these last few months have been unbearable to watch.
Yeah,
Ashley.
yeah.
And we love a good discussion. We both love The View. Anyone who's listening to our podcast, please understand, Ashley and I watch The View appointment television every day.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. This is the show. If we don't text about anything else during the day, we text about The View.
That's why we ride so hard for Sunny, because we love her. But
exactly.
But yeah, I just thought that was something worth mentioning, Ashley.
Like, I mean, it was definitely.
Were you surprised?
I was surprised by how it was handled because I thought if Meghan left, it was not going to be of her own accord.
Nope.
And the way that it was presented was this is a decision she made based on her family and based on wanting to stay close with her family in DC and all this. So I was surprised by that. Was I surprised she left? No, because honestly, 4 years is a good run for a right winger on The View.
Absolutely. I agree. So Ashley, my thoughts about it is something had to change, frankly. Like the pot was boiling over, like I mentioned in the last few months. And I knew something had to change when they did not get an Emmy nomination.
Yeah, you mentioned that to me. I just felt that things definitely had taken a more contentious turn to the point of, we talked about, the new ABC News president, Kim, having to have a sit down conversation following one particular heated episode and between Meghan and Joy. And I just...
Meghan and Whoopi.
And I just felt that when Meghan first came on the show, I was kind of excited based on the momentum of feeling like she was going to be a breath of fresh air compared to some people who had been on there previously.
Really?
But I was excited for her when she first started. I honestly was. I thought she was going to be a younger, fresher take on this panel. But I have to be honest that my feelings devolved.
Very quickly, because she was spouting talking points left and right. I actually used to joke with you and say, I wonder if she's on their payroll. Like, yeah,
I also just felt like her rapport became a bit disrespectful for me. And that's where you lose me. Like, I think it's one thing to stand firm in your arguments and stand firm in your points. But when you're huffing and puffing and you don't show up to the next segment because you're upset, and to me, that seems so unprofessional. You're talking trash about the topics that the producers are choosing, as we've talked about. It just reached a point where it was no longer serving me as an audience member. And that's really all that I could speak to was I still enjoying it or not? And I'm curious to see who they're going to replace her with. If it's Anna, come on, Anna, let's make this a permanent co-host position.
Love Anna. And so for me, I actually was not excited when she joined The View because as an avid viewer, they were rotating all types of guests. And there were some that, was sticking a little bit longer and I was getting excited for them. And to me, her and Abby were from left field, and frankly, courtesy of nepotism. You know what I mean? I'm like,
those credentials were always in question.
All I gotta say for everyone who's listening, just go to the Griot site. They have their news media. Their title had me rolling. It was incredible. Anyway, this actually wasn't a part of our original lineup, but because it came out today, we had to talk about it. As avid The View watchers, this is major.
And listen, sometimes things have to be added to the agenda live, guys. This is what happens when we get on the mic together. So
absolutely. All right, Ashley. So also in quick headlines, Serena Williams is out at Wimbledon.
Heartbreaking.
So, earlier this week, the 23-time Grand Slam champion was forced to retire from her first round match at Wimbledon due to injury. Ashley, and I'm getting all this from Yahoo Sports, she's not even the only athlete that injured themselves because of the conditions of the courts.
Exactly.
French player, Adrian Manarano, please forgive me, sir, for saying your name. He injured himself first, then Serena, and then other notable tennis players were slipping and sliding multiple times during their matches. Ashley, what were your initial thoughts when you heard this news about Serena?
I was heartbroken because, as I've mentioned previously on the podcast, I am a fan of Serena. Serena is the GOAT.
All day, every day.
I love her so much, and I want to see her achieve this milestone that I know she's been really, really, really hungry for since the birth of her daughter. And I want to see her overcome this moment and really be able to do the last thing that it seems like she probably wants to do to fulfill her legacy. Exactly. And this was such a good shot because you had Naomi, who wasn't in, you had the number 1 seed, I believe, who I read was out. So this is a really good time for her. And Wimbledon is an iconic time to have won this 24th Grand Slam. So I felt,
this is her favorite.
Yeah, I felt the pain. When I saw her in tears, it choked me up a little bit. I'm gonna be honest, because I'm rooting for everybody Black, and Serena is at the top of that list.
Absolutely. So, Ashley, I couldn't watch the video for several days. I just could not do it because I was sick to my stomach because I am an avid Serena Williams fan.
Yeah.
I have my Mount Rushmore of women who I want to meet. Oprah, Michelle Obama.
Well,
Serena
you met
Williams.
Oprah, sis, so you can cross that one off your list.
I met Michelle too.
Hold on, when did you meet Michelle? When did you meet Michelle?
I met her in 2019.
I don't think I knew this.
Yes, you did.
How did I know this?
Ashley, I have pictures. I met her with my mom and my sister.
Oh, I don't even remember this. Dang.
Ashley.
I got to start rolling with you and your family. I got to start going to the same events with y'all. I'm bring my mom right along. Don't worry, Mom, you coming too, because they meeting all of our sheroes.
Anyway, Serena is up there, and Meghan Markle has been recently added to the list. But I was sick to my stomach because I had the same thing in mind. I was like, Naomi is out. She's focusing on the Olympics, and you know, I just want her, because at this point it's a mental thing. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
Because she could have had 26, 27 by now because she's made it to the finals, but she hadn't been able to
close out
this hurdle. So yeah, I was sick to my stomach, but praying for a speedy recovery, sis.
Yeah, and I don't know the rules at Wimbledon, but if Roger Federer is expressing concern, and obviously you're seeing more than one athlete go down, shouldn't there have been a discussion of maybe a postponement until the weather resolved and the court was safe to play on? I mean, I just don't know any other sports that would allow multiple athletes to get injured based on weather conditions.
So All England Lawn Tennis and Croquet Club, these are the people who maintain the courts. They said that they're happy with the conditions despite the complaints. So that was according to BuzzFeed. So I don't know.
Oh,
exactly. Serena,
that's what I have for that.
Serena, we love you. We send positive thoughts and energy and prayer your way.
Speedy recovery, sis.
You will get this Grand Slam and more. You can do it, sis. We believe in you.
Yes.
All right, Ashley. Our second quick headline here. Britney Spears petition to remove father from conservatorship denied by judge. I'm looking at Good Morning America right now. Ashley.
Yeah.
This is a tough one. According to Good Morning America here, they say that the petition to remove James Spears as the sole conservator of the estate is denied without prejudice. There's no word yet from Britney's camp on any appeals. Ashley, this is a blow to the Free Britney movement.
Yeah, I'm trying not to take it as the nail in the coffin, just because this was a petition that was filed back in November and not something that has happened since the discussion and conservatorship hearing that we talked about last week. So I'm trying to take it in that. But it also was a little illuminating because I didn't realize until I was reading up and prep for this that Jamie is the conservator of her estate, but that another lady is the conservator of her person. Jody Montgomery, I remember that name from the documentary Framing Britney Spears, and curious as to the logistics of that, because the way it seemed in the hearing previously, I thought Jamie was still over everything. So if we have now another person who's involved, I read in the Yahoo News article I was reading that this lady is supposedly going to try to help Britney to get freed from conservatorship and show why she should be freed of it. But I need to see the proof in the pudding and not just keep hearing about how these people are handling things. Because at this point, when her lawyers file to completely remove the conservatorship, if there's not true legal action taken, I don't know how the public is going to handle that, Delora.
Yeah. And honestly, Montgomery and Jamie Spears were throwing each other under the bus after all this was going on. I guess Jamie Spears' lawyer came out and said he does not speak or meet with Spears' medical team. He did not permit, nor does he have the opportunity to provide any input into his daughter's current medical treatment, diagnoses, or therapy. And so it's a war of words right now between the two conservators, which makes me feel like there's something rotten somewhere. This seems very suspicious. But Ashley, when I heard this news, this low key is suffocating. I felt like it was hard to breathe, and it has nothing to do with me.
Exactly.
Because when is she going to get any relief? When? And I hate to go this far, and I almost don't want to say it, but I immediately was concerned about Britney's overall well-being in life, frankly.
Absolutely. If you have somebody who hops on a call and is pleading essentially for their life, and that's not taken to heart by every party involved, because again, I don't know the logistics of conservatorship law. I am not a lawyer. I have never studied law. Can they absolve the conservatorship on their end? I just feel like there are so many things that I'm not aware of with this situation. But again, if after all is said and done, Delora, the next petition that gets filed by her lawyers to completely remove the conservatorship, because they're saying that will be the next step, if that is somehow not granted, I do not know how the public is going to react.
So we will definitely keep an eye on this story. Again, hashtag Free Britney.
Period.
All right, Ashley, for our main hot topic today.
Jesus, take the wheel.
Bill Cosby freed as court overturns his sex assault conviction. This is from the New York Times. Ashley, on Wednesday, Bill Cosby was released from prison after the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned his 2018 conviction for sexual assault, a dramatic reversal in one of the first high-profile criminal trials of the Me Too era. All right, Ashley, as you know, over 50 women from across the nation accused Bill Cosby of sexual assault and misconduct, and statutes of limitations in their cases makes further prosecution unlikely. So it's essentially a technicality that Bill Cosby is out of prison right now, Ashley.
Yes.
So basically, in one of his civil cases, he agreed to have a whole deposition, and that prosecutor promised not to use any of his testimony against him. That prosecutor was then replaced with another prosecutor that used his testimony against him, and hence the 2018 trial. With this also, Ashley, you can't do double jeopardy. He can no longer be convicted for this crime.
Right.
So he's essentially spent 3 years in jail after allegedly assaulting over 50 women over the decades. Ashley, what were the first words that came to mind when you saw this news yesterday?
No fucking way. It's probably the best way to sum it up. I was at lunch and I got a text first, and then I got a news alert, and I think that we talked just about not being able to breathe in the suffocation of the Britney news. This one hit me like so hard in a way, because I just imagined what the victims had to have felt in that moment. And it had to have been disbelief and pure sadness and anger, right? Like,
absolutely.
I believe these women. If there's any question about where I stand, it is that he was guilty, and that absolutely he got out on a technicality. I don't like this framing of this was an injustice that was righted. This is a win for Black America. This man does not represent Black America. Let's be clear. If he was ever y'all hero, I hope that myth has been dispelled.
Whew.
I do not have the capacity at this point in time to dive deep into it, just because I think I'm still processing it. And I think it's still just so unsettling to me that the way that this situation has unfolded, because to your point, it is literally a legal technicality. It was the first prosecutor thinking that he didn't have a criminal case, so then trying to seek some level of justice, supposedly in a civil case for her, went the route of granting him the level of immunity of not ever being prosecuted. So it's prosecutorial negligence to a certain degree, but it's also mismanagement on the second prosecutor's part, that he didn't
get his due process.
But it's also prosecutorial, neglect on the second prosecutor's part, that you weren't aware of this somehow, and that this still went forward. And now it's just, I mean, maybe some of the victims feel, well, at least he served a little bit of time, but I just cannot imagine what you go through when you felt like you had finally received some level of justice, and then to have it completely dismantled in this way, and to have it so praised. Like, one thing that has bothered me, and this is my last point to learn, I'm done, is the media coverage over the last day or 24 hours, and the idea of wanting to hear what he has to say. I don't give a fuck what this man has to say. I don't want to hear his point of view. I do not want to see him. I know how I feel about this, and how I feel about these victims that have come out in the years about sexual assault. I believe the victim. So from my perspective, he may have gotten out of prison and all this and that, but he can go off and do whatever he needs to do. And I don't want to hear from him ever again.
Well said, Ashley. Well said. Well, for myself, my initial reaction was, what the actual fuck, right? Because I was like, what? You, of course, like most headlines, between our communication is like either I give it to you first and you give it to me first.
Yeah. We break the news to one another often.
Exactly. You informed me what had happened and I was like, what?
Yeah.
And Ashley, this is heartbreaking, but this is also not new. And I think that's what makes it also just is equally heartbreaking, right? Because we've seen this story time and time and time again. In terms of this being a win for Black America, what?
Girl.
What? No.
What about the Black women who accused that man?
That is what
of
I'm
sexual
saying. And so for me, the win is for famous, wealthy men. That's who wins in this scenario. And I actually got that from our friend Andrew and my friend Brandon. They're doing this thing on Instagram live, and they brought it up. And
because Harvey Weinstein's lawyers hopped on this real quick and released a statement.
Real quick, okay? Because it takes a wealthy man to have his lawyers while he's in prison actively find, loopholes in the law to get him out. Because no average person could have afforded that.
Exactly. Frankly. And with all the injustices and all the innocent people who actually do go to prison for crimes who need to be exonerated, and it's so upsetting, Delora. This is one of those, if we didn't have a podcast, I don't think I would speak on this because that's how much it pissed me off. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let's talk about Twitter, because Twitter was an actual clusterfuck yesterday. Especially for Black Twitter, because it was genuinely split. One of the driving voices in the Twitter discussion was from none other Dean at Chadwick Boseman, Howard University College of Fine Arts, Felicia Richard.
If y'all could see me, I have my eyes closed and my hands up because I can't. Go ahead, Delora.
Finally, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. A terrible wrong is being righted. A miscarriage of justice is corrected. She has since retracted the statement in saying that she supports survivors of sexual assault.
Bullshit.
And my post in no way intended to be insensitive to their truth.
Please.
Ma'am.
Please.
Dare I say, bye, Felicia.
Girl. And I'm not at a place where it's like, am I no longer going to support Felicia Rashad? Guys, I'm not there. I can't go there.
I'm not going to cancel Felicia Rashad.
I can't deal with that. I'm dealing with my emotions about the Prime issue. But I will say that was extremely disappointing.
Again, what is it about women sticking their necks out for these men and their reckless behavior? Because will it be reciprocated? I'm talking to you, Sharon Osbourne.
Particularly, and I'm sorry, women of a certain generation.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but y'all do this. I remember when when the first stuff started going down with Bill Cosby, one of my aunts, sorry, we got into it a little bit because I flat out thought this man was guilty, and you want to say otherwise. And I'm like, where are you coming from with this? I don't understand if he has double-digit accusers, why you're still so convinced just because he is Bill Cosby. So that's my main thing with any of these cases, Dolores, the idea that your fandom and your appreciation and your respect for somebody's work negates their humanity and the atrocities that they can commit because of that humanity.
And actually, I'm glad that you're bringing this up, because I actually did write down legacy. What does this do for his legacy, right? Because if I am frank, ever since 2020, I feel like, we have a level of visibility on people we like to idolize more than ever before. And we are actively learning how to reconcile the person from, their work.
Yes. And if you
How do
can
do that,
if you can, because some people can.
And some people cannot. And I can honestly say, for R. Kelly, throw that shit in the garbage. I'm good. You know what I mean? I cannot say that about Bill Cosby, Ashley, if I'm being 100% transparent. I'm not throwing away a different world.
So a different
I'm
world
not.
is a caveat for me because
I have not watched the Cosby Show, but
because he's not on screen. I think that's why. I think even though you know that he took part in that show and that he was dealt with it, because he's not a main character on the show, I think that's why I too have been able to watch it in subsequent years.
And the GOAT, Debbie Allen, of course.
I mean, exactly.
She directed every episode after season 1. She was in their first season.
Now I wonder if Debbie called Felicia and was like, sis, what?
Sit down. Wait. Why was Debbie trending on Twitter after Felicia made that statement?
Of course. Get your sister.
We like Debbie better anyway.
Yeah, because if Aunt Viv is out here speaking on it, people are like, come on, Debbie, get your sister. She's tripping.
One of my I don't know if you saw Daily Pod today or heard it. Justin Sylvester was like, that's why you don't give anybody over the age 65 a Twitter account.
That's how you feel, Justin? That's how you feel?
It was petty, but you could tell she's so old school that it was like she felt there was a level of freedom I felt that she thought she was expressing in that tweet that I'm like, ma'am, know the audience. Yeah. You were better off being a silent person throughout this whole time. I had not heard I heard more from her sister about Cosby than I heard from her up until this point.
Let them tweet, Delora. I love knowing where people really stand on things. Let these mofos tweet, girl. I want y'all to tell me who y'all really are. Period. That's what I love about it. Tell me who you really are and tell me how you really feel. Okay, now I know.
Whew, it's tough. It's tough, Ashley. All right, Ashley, if there's nothing else, that's it for our hot topics.
It is now time for the recap. All right, guys, the recap for this week is Fatherhood on Netflix, but we are joined by a very special guest this week, my longtime, lifelong friend, soon to be first-time daddy and fellow podcaster with the ITL podcast, Johnny Wheel. What's good?
What's good? That introduction was great. I almost thought you were talking about somebody else for a second. But yes, I'm excited to join you all, especially to talk about a fun movie that got some serious moments, but a fun movie to discuss, none-the-wiser. So happy to be here. Yes, a fellow podcaster, podcast with my friends that is not as, I want to say as on point as you all, because we definitely just get on the mic and kind of talk a lot of craziness. The ITO podcast is the name of mine with two of my closest friends as well.
Yeah, but y'all been doing y'all's for some years, so y'all got this thing down to a science.
Get on the mics and just go.
Yeah, we're still in our infancy, so we appreciate you joining us today. As I said, you about to be a first-time daddy, so I'm sure you related heavily to this. And obviously, Delora's child is a good 3 years old at this point, Miss Amara. So looking forward to you guys' differences and maybe similarities and points of view. So let's get into it. As I mentioned, Fatherhood dropped on Netflix on June 18th. It has remained in Netflix's top 10 since release, is currently number 5. Quick summary: a father brings up his baby girl as a single dad after the unexpected death of his wife, who died a day after their daughter's birth. Guys, I didn't know this until I researched, I think like yesterday. I didn't know this was based on a book. This is based on a 2011 best-selling memoir, Two Kisses for Maddie, a memoir of loss and love by Matt.
Yes.
Is it Laughlin? Sorry, sir. Tried to pronounce your name correctly. The cast of this: Kevin Hart stars as Matt, main character. Melody Hurd stars as his daughter Maddie. Deborah Ayarinde stars as Liz, his wife. Alfre Woodard is Marion, his mother-in-law. Little Rail is Jordan, one of his friends. DeWanda Wise is Lizzie, aka Swan. Paul Reiser is Howard. Anthony Kerrigan is Oscar. Frankie Faison is Mike. And Thedra Porter is Anna. Guys, reviews for this, Rotten Tomatoes as usual, 64% critic score, 72% audience score. But as usual, our faithful Google users gave it 93% thumbs up. So as always, gave everybody else's opinion but ours. Johnny, as our special guest, give me your grade for Fatherhood.
I've been so anxious for this because Ashley, as you know, because I talk to you daily. So when you all, started this podcast, it actually made me sit back and I asked myself, all right, how do I grade movies? Because I hear you all give a grade each week. So how do I grade movies? And what I came away with is the way that I grade movies is if I believe it, if I believe the role that the character is playing. So my grade, I walk away with a B+ on this movie. The reason why it's really not an A for me is it's really petty, but it's certain parts of the movie to where I expected more. So when, for example, when he meets Lizzie, who has the same name as his wife, I expected a build up to where there was going to be a moment in the movie to where that name created, I guess, some trauma or brought back some trauma for him, into which he played into that. And he forgot that she's not Liz, his wife, she's the new Lizzie. And when that didn't happen, I was like, oh man, why did y'all name her the same name? She could have been anybody at that point.
Because it's based off the true story. That's real. Yeah. That his new wife's name really is Lizzie. So that was true. Wow. Yeah, that was true. Yeah.
Wow. So that actually may change my grade a bit. The other reason for my grade is, as you mentioned, in the next 3 weeks, they could have still
taken creative license, Johnny. So I feel you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That's true. Within the next 3 weeks, preparing to be a father myself, and the way that this movie starts so heavy, it with having, I'll be very, very transparent, with having a appointment today myself with my wife. This movie gave me the opportunity to have some real honest conversation with our doctor about this very situation. So I appreciate the fact that I saw this before then, because I was able to walk into that doctor's office and say, hey, what are you going to do pre-labor and post-labor to make sure that my wife survives this? So that was very helpful and informative for myself.
That is powerful,
Johnny. When I watched this and I knew you were going to be our guest, I was like, holy moly, what?
Yeah.
This is not something you watched before, but I'm glad that you said that, because that just brings me peace personally. Like, you're okay, and definitely be praying for your beautiful wife for sure.
Yeah, well, especially because you said your wife could not watch the beginning. She struggled with that. So the fact that she struggled, but then you were still able to take something from it that will be beneficial to her during delivery is powerful.
Yeah, so we started watching it together, and we turned it off because of that opening scene. And then I just, I watched it later alone. And, to be honest, listeners, when you hear this, once you get past that scene, it is a enjoyable movie. But that scene, it is heavy, but I did walk away with some information and lessons learned.
That's wonderful, Johnny. Delora, what's your grade, darling?
All right. So my grade is a B-. So I felt like the film was a good film. You know what I mean? But I have to admit, especially once we get to when Maddie's a little bit older, there were a lot of scenes that just seemed to be thrown in there. There wasn't much of a connection or overlying theme. I mean, you could justify in saying, oh, well, that's him living day-to-day life. But it just seemed like a bunch of just scenes put together, and it didn't seem cohesive to me. And if I'm transparent, I got to talk about my birthday mate, okay? Me and Kevin Hart share the same birthday, okay?
I did not know that.
We sure do, along with Tia and Tamara.
I knew that.
And Curtis Petty, 50 Cent Jackson. Okay.
Listen, you got stars on your birthday.
Exactly.
But all the men, I don't trust Cancer men. I'm a Cancer woman. Love all of us. Cancer men are just ridiculous. So I don't like to claim them. So I say all that to say
we have a cancer guy friend, don't we, Johnny?
Exactly. Yeah.
I have so many thoughts on that. I'm not going to divulge. But what I will say is Kevin Hart isn't as charming or as innocent as he used to be. And I say that to say a lot of his outside scandals, like his claim to fame is like the goofy, lovable father, husband, good heart, right? His company's called Heart Productions. Like, so, you know, he always goes for the heart of things. Some of his antics outside of his movies and shows, and then after doing that documentary, did not help his case. You know what I mean? it just, him being the lovable, you know, I mess up, but I have a good heart thing, character, stick.
It's not working
doesn't land for me as much anymore. Because I see the powerful comedian who, you know, does what you have to do because he's a man and he's a star and he sells out stadiums and he's, you know, he's Kevin Hart, you know, and I stepped away from the Oscars.
Tell us how you really feel, Delora. I love it.
Right.
I'm done.
Okay.
So Delora, I have a question. So
yes.
So are you saying when you watched this movie, you didn't see Matt, you saw Kevin Hart and all of his outside mess?
Bingo.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't separate the man from the art at this point. All right. Well, now it's my time. And I'm with Delora today. It's a B-. And I almost gave it a C because
so close.
Yeah,
so
for
close.
me, you know, and I've told this even to you, Johnny, I enjoy Kevin Hart's more serious roles, like The Upside with Bryan Cranston is probably still one of my favorites with him.
I have to see that.
This film was enjoyable, but it in no way wowed me. I wasn't remotely moved by any of the scenes. I never even once felt even a little bit of like, oh, am I about to tear up? And this was, there were some moments that really I feel like should have moved me in some type of way. To your point, Delora, I think it was the pacing a little bit. But what it was not was the separation of art and life for me, because with all the other shenanigans that people have done in the world, we just talked about Bill Cosby for one of the hot topics. I don't care about no man who's cheating on his wife. I really don't. Like, I really, really, really don't. That is not my business. That is that man's household. You know, you have to apologize to your family structure, but you don't have to apologize to me. That's none of my business. So that did not impact me, but I just think that as a film, there were things that, to both of your points, I think were not utilized correctly in order to really get the response from the audience that they were probably looking for. So that's why it's a B- for me, possibly a C+, but I digress. Let's get into the good. Spoiler alert, guys, we about to get into this film. So as we've been talking about already, we start off heavy. We start off with a funeral. In Matt's words, this sucks. We see flashbacks, he and his wife preparing for the birth of their first child, 7 weeks early, by the way. She ends up having to have a C-section. And unfortunately, guys, she passes away the next day of a pulmonary embolism, just as she's about to go see her daughter for the first time. Those who aren't aware, pulmonary embolism, she ended up having a blood clot that traveled to her lung. So Delora and Johnny, while they tried to inject a bit of humor, even like in the funeral scenes, this was traumatic, right? Immediately, you know, for me at least, I thought about the maternal mortality rate stats for Black women in this country, and the fact that Black women are more likely to die during or shortly thereafter childbirth compared to other races. And even Serena Williams, I mean, this same exact scenario almost happened to Serena Williams when she gave birth. So you guys have both talked about this, but what were your first immediate thoughts when you took in this series of events to start this film? Delora, I'll start with you.
Oh, Ashley, if there's anything that's, you know, triggering, thankfully I'm here. But when I tell you the level of stress and anxiety that goes through this process, being a woman in her childbearing years, being a woman who has been blessed to have a child to still be here, but had such a horrible recovery post cesarean. It's out there for the world now. It was very difficult to watch. It gave me extremely high anxiety watching it. I also thought of Serena. I also thought of the Black women mortality rate. And, you know, obviously with this being based off a true story, with the names Matt and Lizzie being in Minnesota, these are originally white people.
Yes, they
that
are.
This happens to, but I feel like it's more dynamic placing these beautiful, roles to beautiful chocolate Black people. You know what I mean? It does hit in a different way.
Yes.
And I wonder if Higher Ground had anything to do with it. That's Barack and Michelle Obama's production company, which is behind this film.
Shout out.
But it just stings a little bit more, but it also is important to tell this story because this is something that's very prevalent in our society today.
Correct. Absolutely. What about you, Johnny?
So my first thoughts with the opening scene was bad timing. Like, why? I knew that, obviously from the trailer that he was going to be a single father due to his wife passing, but I was not expecting that to be the opening scene. So my initial takeaway was, maybe this is bad timing to start it. However, as I talked about the information I walked away with, I did watch the movie twice. So the second time I watched it, this was after the conversation with our doctors, and I watched all the missteps that took place in the delivery and the conversation that they had with the doctor while their initial doctor was in Maui. So the lack of care and attentiveness that was showed up front from the person that was going to deliver their child. And then also that they were not monitoring his wife's blood pressure. So I saw all those missteps. The other thing is Lil Rel, and I apologize to your listeners that I'm not really good with character names, but Lil Rel, his character, that was refreshing because that is very real. In my life, going through traumatic situations, and having male friends, that is what they do. For no other reason than we probably just don't know what to say in those moments.
Yeah.
So they try to lighten it with maybe jokes that just don't land.
Yeah.
And it was very real to me because that is exactly what happens in those moments.
Comparing his wife's death to the time he got poison ivy and his face was popping at summer camp.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, I remember being a face full of tears and my guy friends still cracking jokes as if like, we're going to bring your spirits back up. And that is really what occurs. So, I took away the realism of that scene as well.
I love that perspective again with Delora, you being a first-time mom who had to go through this birthing process, had to get a C-section, Black woman, know that process. And Johnny, you about to be a first-time father, your wife about to go through this process. Definitely was curious about you guys' takes. Johnny, to your point though, I'm a woman and I still struggle with grief. So I'm probably that person too, who somebody be like, Ashley, just go like sit down somewhere. Cause like, you don't have anything for me in this moment. And so I can be there for you, but I definitely do not. I struggle with words. Cause what do you say to somebody when they've lost their spouse in this moment? It would be hard, I think, for most people, but it added levity to the movie for sure.
I mean, that's such a difficult position to be in. The most exciting new thing that has ever happened to you.
Yeah.
Bringing life into this earth and then also losing the love of your life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Alfre Woodard as Marion probably got to me the most though in that scene with her reaction to like, she just came up with the balloons and she's dropping them. Where's my daughter? What happened to my daughter?
Right.
That was probably one of the most impactful moment that happened. And the real Matt said that it really happened that way in real life. And I can't fathom it. You know what I mean? I can't fathom it.
Do you think it was too aggressive, Kevin Hart trying to push back on the doctors, or what did you think about that part?
I didn't think it was too aggressive because I can only imagine, like my mom, I watched the first time I watched it with my mom, she was like, him moving her head like that may have been an issue. I was like, but imagine if your wife, you see something happening to her and you're like, hold on, what's happening? Right. Like, it was so unexpected. You don't know what your reaction is going to be in those type of moments. So it was very believable to me, because I would imagine any husband is going to try to be right there by his wife's side and figure out what is happening to my wife.
Yeah.
And then they're pushing him, yo, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what's happening right now?
Yeah.
And he carried that trauma throughout the entire film of not being there for her in that final moment. So it was very impactful for him, as I think it would be for most people. But guys, I do have one more question in this opening. Would you have attempted to speak at your spouse's funeral? Because I wouldn't have had it in me. Go ahead, Johnny.
I'm with you, Ashley. I probably would not be able to get up there and speak.
No, not at all.
Being honest, I would feel the pressure of, I feel like I should say something. But I wouldn't get a word out. You was at my proposal, so I wouldn't get a word out. So
yeah, go ahead, Delora. What about you?
I think a level of shock is necessary to be able to do something like that. You know what I mean? Like you're operating on fumes, but you might as well just push through. I'm thinking of Vanessa Bryant, how she has been able
that's a good example
to do so many memorials, public facing memorials, and
even Chad's wife.
Yeah. And I was going to say, even maintain a social media presence and all of it, you know, she has to be dealing with a level of just disbelief to be able to be functional at this point. I feel like
losing her husband and her daughter too.
In such a traumatic way.
Yeah.
And, you know, they say grief, you know, comes in waves. So, you know, maybe it's not crashing on her now, or in this case, Matt, he was able to make it through the funeral, but
you specifically, knowing yourself, would you have been able to get up there and speak?
I don't know. And then I'm even though I have a podcast, I don't like writing a lot of tributes or speaking at speeches. See, I can't even talk now. I'm just so I don't know. I don't know. I pray. I don't like to think that far. I don't know. I hate to say it.
I mean, I
know
think that's
highly
fair.
Affected people think about it, but
I think that's fair because, again, grief is one of those things you don't necessarily know how you're going to process it until you're there. So I think it makes sense to say you don't know. I just know for sure, like I couldn't even speak at my grandmother's funeral, let alone my spouse or, you know, someone who was taken to me in such an unexpected, tragic, untimely way. Like I'm not that person, you know. I don't even know if I would have made it in the door, let alone up on the podium. So, you know, kudos to anybody, especially Matt in this moment, who had the strength to get up there and at least try to say a few words.
Yeah, and the Vanessa Bryant, that was a good point, because for this season, you know, as you mentioned, she's done so many memorials. For this season, she asked the NBA, please don't do any more tributes. Don't do a tribute on the anniversary. Don't do a tribute on his birthday. Let's just, just go about our day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That makes sense. That's too much.
Thank you, Johnny Will, with the sports drop. All right. So both Matt's mother and his mother-in-law, after the funeral, feel he should move back from Boston, where he currently lives, to Minnesota, where he's from, for support, right? Because he, at this point, does not have anybody in Boston with him except his friends, his coworkers, his family, church, all of that are back in Minnesota. His mother-in-law, Marion, she's a little bit more aggressive, though, with her stance and her words. But Matt is determined to stay and make it work. Marion even suggests at first, like, well, you know, I'll stay with you for 6 months. No, that's not going to work out. I think we'll get on each other's nerves, is what Matt said to her. So he inevitably agrees to move back to Minnesota if things don't go well. Guys, in this moment, stay or go. Delora, would you stay or would you go?
I would have stayed. I think it's worth at least trying to do it by yourself before giving up. You know what I mean? Like, just give yourself a chance. I personally did not appreciate her delivery. I felt like she was pretty aggressive. She does a really good job in these roles. I'm reminded of her role in Something New, one of my favorite movies.
Exactly.
Yes, being the overbearing debutante mom. She plays that role very well. It's like, ma'am. Oh, and the other thing I want to mention is why his mom let his mother-in-law talk to him like that.
That was going to be my point, Delora. I literally said, why are you not sticking up for me, Mom? Why are you not sticking up for me?
That is not characteristics, at least in the Black community, where you don't be talking to nobody's son out the side of your mouth like that.
No,
Right.
ma'am. No, ma'am.
Ma'am.
No,
You might
ma'am.
have doubts, but you don't. She just went hard. It's the audacity for me, you know?
The only
Mhm.
thing that I could figure, and I'm sorry, Johnny, I'll let you go in just a sec, is that she knew that she was dealing with a different level of grief because she just lost her child, right? So I think maybe she was letting her be a little bit more reckless because she recognized
Excellent
the
point.
trauma that she must be going through. But I was on your same page where I said, hold on, Mom. I'm gonna need you to step up here. Don't let this other grown woman talk to me like this. But go ahead, Johnny.
I'll be honest. Now that I know that the original characters or the real life people were not Black, the scene, my take is a little bit different. It makes a little bit more sense, to be honest.
Well, so
Because-
in real life, his mother-in-law is nothing like this. That was the
Okay.
one big deviance he said
Okay.
that they made, was that his mother-in-law, he said, I get they added it for the drama, but this is
Mhm.
nothing like his mother-in-law. She's a sweet
Yeah.
woman, he said. So
Interesting.
Gotcha.
yeah.
So seeing that, I was thinking to myself, the delivery is way off, but I can understand the sentiments because Matt does seem to be unprepared and not ready to raise a child alone. The crib is not ready. You know,
Yeah.
he was not really equipped to take on this responsibility. I also was thinking to myself, maybe his mother is not jumping into his defense for two reasons. Number one, she may agree a little bit, probably doesn't like the delivery, but agree with the sentiments of the mother-in-law.
Yeah.
But also she's maybe understanding down and distance. Now is not the time to create an internal fight within the family because we're all really grieving. And I expected her maybe to have a really deep conversation with her son later, but it came from the father-in-law, later on and not necessarily from the mother. But that's what I thought it was building up to. And I was thinking to myself, the mom is going to have that mother's love, the only way a mother can talk to you and set you right on the right path. But I agree with you. I was like, okay, Mom, jump in at any point.
Right.
And have my back.
Right. Don't be, because it's also like an elder thing. Obviously, in the Black community, we know too, you're not gonna pop off at someone who is your elder the same way you would. So that's another reason why I was like, Mom, can you at least
Peer. Peer.
back
Show
her
mom.
down? Exactly. Because if I do it too aggressively, then I will be considered disrespectful. And I think we as audience would have felt that he was disrespectful if he had come at Marion, kind of sideways. So
I agree I appreciate Matt's attitude though. His attitude of like, I want to be in her life and try.
yeah,
Before you take her away, let me try.
I'm that
And
baby's
I was
daddy.
like, "Was you pressing?" I'm the pappy, right? I'm the pappy. Let me give it a shot. And
Exactly.
and I may be going too far, but I remember thinking, okay, he needs Rocky Balboa right now because if you remember in Creed, when Adonis found out that his daughter was hearing impaired, Rocky says she's not feeling sorry for herself, so you need to stop as well. And there's moments to where Matt definitely felt sorry for himself, and it's like, stop it. Your daughter's not feeling sorry for herself. She may, when she does that sleepover, she may feel like she's missing something. But stop feeling sorry for yourself and be in your daughter's life.
That was a great reference, Johnny. Look at you,
yeah.
Creed out here. I agree
never.
I agree. I agree with you guys that I would have gave it a shot, but I was thinking I might have taken her up on that 6 months though. I might have been like, you know what? Maybe we could work something out. Maybe
Absolutely.
3.
As a person who had their child, who had a C-section, and who had a spouse, and we were living here by ourselves, heck yeah, I would have had somebody 6 months. You mean I could sleep?
But with that mother-in-law energy though, maybe you're like, I need somebody to say 6 months, just maybe not you.
Oh yeah, that could definitely be the case. But at that point, again, it would have been possibly so overwhelming.
I would never.
No, absolutely. We
just
all
to the movie mother-in-law, not yours, Delora. We know David's mother is wonderful.
Fantastic. Yeah, that mother-in-law. Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, he's talking Marion specifically. Can never throw David's mama under the bus on the pod. Never. Let's clean that up right now.
Never.
Love you, David's mama.
Love you.
All right. So Matt, with the help of his friends Jordan and Oscar, managed to keep little Maddie alive. I want to talk about one scene in particular where Matt cannot get Maddie to stop crying. So
Did
he
you
goes,
just say he managed to keep her alive?
yes, he managed to keep her alive. That was the question. What's going to happen?
Wait. I will say, Ashley, the reason why first-time parents make a big deal for the first birthday is because you're rejoicing that you and the babies are here.
We're alive. Okay? We made it. We made it.
There is no instruction manual when taking care of a child. I don't care how many books you read, okay? Like, God has blessed y'all to make it through, okay?
As somebody over here who's still trying to work on keeping plants alive, listen, I already know I'm going to be on my knees thanking Jesus if I can keep my little baby alive. There's too much that can happen to them. It's too much. They're so vulnerable. They're so vulnerable.
Too much.
So yes, kept that baby alive. But when he goes to this parent support group, he's told initially that the group is only for new moms. Discrimination, first of all. Inevitably, he gets some invaluable advice, but I want to talk about this scene because, guys, in real life, Matt said that while this was true, they actually the mom's group voted to keep him out the group. Wow. And it caused such a rift.
Heartless.
Girl, it caused such a rift that the support group disbanded and some women left just to come and support Matt. So, is there a bias against single fathers? What are you guys' thoughts about that story of real life Matt's struggle? Johnny, give me yours first.
Absolutely. You know, I know that, you know, there's a mother's love is different. You know, the mother carries, the mother delivers. So it is very different than a father's love. So for that, I'm not gonna say I understand, but if I'm in those women's shoes, they're probably thinking, you didn't push, you didn't deliver, you don't deserve to be here. But I don't understand why they wouldn't at least relate to the fact that he's by himself and needs some support and some guidance as well.
Right.
You know, hey, I'm coming to you all. I wasn't placed here. I didn't just walk around and just stumble upon y'all. I came to you all. So I sought you all.
For men to do.
Yeah. Exactly. So I sought you all out because I thought you could help, and you're turning me away for no other reason than you probably think I don't belong with you all.
Because y'all want to sit up here and talk about the fact that you want to kill your husband or that you get turned on by breastfeeding. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, that was
I didn't appreciate that. I don't want to make anybody feel inappropriate, but that was gross as fuck.
No, it was
super gross.
It was.
Like, oh my God.
It was.
No.
That's something you keep to yourself. I don't need to hear nothing like that.
Tell your priest and your therapist. You don't need to tell a group of women.
Delora, what were your thoughts about that? Him being voted out of the mom's group in reality?
Well, I can see both sides of the story, unfortunately. So for me, my heart is big enough because I'm a Cancer. I
feel like you need to make a song or something. You Cancering hard out here.
Exactly.
My birthday is next week. Give me a break, okay? It is Cancer season, okay? It comes around once a year.
True.
Just like your sign, okay? No, just like
you see how aggressive she is? I cannot.
I'm being silly.
She Cancer. All that means is that she has a big heart, but she also can cut us off at any moment.
Exactly.
My family is laughing really hard at that statement. Okay. I would have definitely wanted him to stay, especially for the basics. He didn't know how to do the freaking stroller. Goodness gracious. I have to say, watching him go through the basics, my nurturing side came completely out. Like, okay, you hold the baby, you hold them tight, you swallow, you swallow them. I can't even say it. You swaddle them, you hum, like, you know, all of that was just activated inside of me. But I definitely would have wanted him to stay for the basics. Now, I can also see why women would not want him a part of the group, because, like to what Johnny said, it's like you're not healing from having abdominal surgery or having 4-degree tears on your vagina. I need to talk about this freely with other women, and I don't feel comfortable with a man in the group. But mommy wars are also real, and there's some people who are just they're just not nice people. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I can see it, but you got to give the man grace. He is a widower. Like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
They didn't even give the man a chance. It doesn't sound like y'all just voted and said, well, because you have a penis, regardless of whether or not you have a new born baby that needs care and does not have a mother,
And
that
to
you
be
don't deserve
fair,
this type of advice and
and the
support.
mother group, and I also don't want to say the only way you can be a parent is through, pushing or housing a child.
Because what about a mom who adopted?
I was going to say adoption are brothers and sisters and non-binary people in the LGBTQ community. You know what I mean? Like, they need to be able to be a part of the forum too. Just say it women only, I just think isn't fair.
Yeah. Again, the support group said parents. So to Matt's point, if you say parents, that means you're allowing anybody to come in here, right? I could see if there was a support group that said moms only. Okay, do y'all talk about Kiki, whatever y'all gotta do. But again, for me, it was absolutely discrimination. It was absolutely bias, and I'm not here for it in any capacity. If y'all need to talk about some other things, do that on a different day of the week. Do a group chat. I don't give a fuck. There's no reason to not let that man in that group, and that's all I have to say about that. Okay, so on the other side of that, guys, at work, Matt was asleep during a meeting and presentation and had to abruptly leave to soothe a crying Maddie. Thankfully, the client seemed like they were so supportive, even though his boss at first was like, listen, I think I'm about to let you go. That's the vibe I was getting, like he's about to get fired. But I wondered during this scene, because again, I'm talking about single father, bias against single father 4. Was he treated this way only because he was a man at work going through this? Would he have gotten this same treatment if he was a mom, a first-time mom? Would they have been supportive of her sleeping while she's about to do a presentation? What did you guys think? John, Delora, you first.
Hell no. There is no way on this green earth that a woman will be able to soothe her crying child with a freaking vacuum in the office and then take half your shirt off. Just never in a million trillion quadrillion years. Okay, first of all, where's the nanny? Where's the daycare? Obviously, I feel like this is a bit of a movie magic situation, because how did he not know to at least find some childcare for this child before going to work?
Well, did he ever even take a moment? Because then his boss was like, you can take 5 or 6 weeks. He was like, I think I'm gonna need 10 to 12 years, but I'm gonna come on to work though. So I just think he never even took a day off. It didn't seem like. So that was interesting, because again, based on the way the movie went, it seemed like for sure, based on his gender, he was being treated differently. That you even had the one client who was like, oh, I have a white noise app on my phone, all this and that. It definitely felt.
By the way, clutch.
Oh yeah.
White
oh
noise.
yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
need to get a warm baby wipe container. You want those wipes to be warm. They only matter the first few months though. Later on, it don't matter. But the first few months, in the middle of the night, no baby wants a cold wipe on their bum. Okay, tears will come.
Johnny, you listening?
Yeah.
I'm about to plug. I got one too. So
okay, you good.
And white noise. So
we still use the same white noise to this day, maybe 3. Okay, so I say all this, no, but I just feel like I do feel like him being a widower played a role in their grace as well. I don't think they would have extended that to him if it was a different situation.
Johnny, what about you?
I definitely felt like this was movie magic, because I'm thinking to myself, okay, are y'all hiring? Where is this job that would allow this? Because with being in COVID and working remote, we're still like, okay, even though you're working from home, you need childcare. We're not even letting, or
don't be holding your baby on that Zoom.
Exactly. So I didn't think this was real, and I definitely don't think that for women. And sorry to go here, but knowing that the real character isn't Black, I don't even think Black people in general will be given this grace.
Good point, Johnny.
You know.
Good point, Johnny.
But I didn't realize this was based on a book. I just thought it was, you know, a fictional moment in a movie, because I'm like, where is this at in reality? You know,
Now,
I don't think that would happen.
Was it really
I
funny for
didn't-
you? Because I didn't laugh.
Well, in that scene, well, let me say this real quick. I did this is probably my judgment way off, but I thought Oscar was going to be a snake at first,
Oh,
because I thought Oscar was going to be a snake because Matt's first meeting with the boss, Oscar says, did you tell him I can take on the clients? So I'm just like, yo, I'm grieving and you worried about you climbing the ladder. So I thought he was going to turn out to be a snake, and I'm happy that he didn't.
interesting.
Whether I laughed,
It was much lighter. The movie was much lighter than that.
yes,
Well, I
absolutely.
mean, lighter
See,
in that dynamic.
I could see thinking that he was going to be villainous too, just based off of the fact that he's always usually kind of a villainous guy in other roles I've seen him in. Like, he has that look.
Always.
Like, sir,
Always.
you're bald with no eyebrows. Like, you know, you got typecast.
He's legit.
hard.
That could be a condition.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying he got
Wait.
typecast in certain roles.
True.
Forgive me for going there, but y'all remember Powder from back in the 90s?
Yes.
God.
Yes. I do.
That movie was actually quite good, by the way.
I remember it was drama. It was very dramatic. But what I was going to say,
that's
though,
what he reminded me of.
what I was going to say, though, is I don't know how true these scenes ring to Matt's real story.
Gotcha.
There's only certain portions that I read about the, movie magic versus reality. This isn't one of them, but I think that's a fair thought still, because again, I talked about gender, so to talk about race and whether or not in real life a Black man would ever see this type of treatment is fair and valid as fuck. So
Yeah.
the second half of the film, we flash forward. Maddie is about 5 or 6 years old. Matt is dealing with a new set of problems, like how to do his own child's hair and adhering to Maddie's Catholic school dress code. Matt also gets set up by Oscar and his wife with Lizzie, who we talked about earlier. She's an animator. This is Matt's first love interest we've seen in the film since his wife. And it's a connection. Something about Matt and these Lizzes. Would that be weird for y'all to date someone who has the same name as your deceased spouse? Are there any names that pop up for y'all in real life more than once in your love life? I'm gonna start with you, Johnny.
Well, I would say it would definitely be helpful because I wouldn't forget her name. You know,
You wouldn't have that awkward moment in bed the first time.
The name would just roll off my tongue, so that would be helpful. I just want to say real quick, Nola Darling. When I saw her pop up in the film, I was like,
yes, she's so beautiful,
great casting.
Gorgeous.
She is
Gorgeous.
But so your question was, would it be difficult?
I was asking, would it be weird? Would you answer? But then I also asked, are there any names that pop up more than once for you in your love life in real life? You got a couple of anybody's lurking in your Rolodex?
Gabrielle seems to pop up a couple of times.
First of all, he's saying
what's
that
your wife's name?
No, he's saying this because he thinks Gabrielle Union is his woman and she's not. He's living in a fantasy world.
I mean, D Wade ain't that much older than us, though. So.
That's true.
Exactly. So,
but Johnny been on this Gabrielle train. He hoping she listening to this podcast right now.
She will. we need to review LA's finest. So go ahead.
I cannot. What about you, Delora?
Honestly, I've had crushes on people with the same names for sure.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of Brandons in my life, a lot of Davids in my life. You know what I mean? We had so many, that's like a guy in our generation being in love with a girl named Ashley.
Exactly. So exactly. My point was about to be, y'all know I don't never assume I'm the first or the last because I'm an Ashley out here. So I'm like, call me what you need to call me, baby, because I already know there's been some others.
Really quick, didn't people probably call you by your last name through the years, didn't they?
So probably at everybody's phone, I'm Ashley Long for sure, because people got a million Ashleys. I only know a couple of people who have given me nicknames over the years. Like I have a friend now who calls me straight by my middle name, does not even call me Ashley. Okay. And I, like my mom and other people have called me different things. Johnny, speaking of Johnny right here on the podcast, calls me a different nickname. He calls me Boogie. So there are definitely people who do not call me Ashley, but I respect and appreciate it because of how basic My name is.
Really?
Girl.
I didn't know you felt
Delora,
that way.
Girl,
Delora, let me
basic.
say, in college, when she saw that her name was Ashley Long in my phone, she gave me hell.
Well, because
How dare you?
Well, because as my best friends, you don't need to still be having my full government name in your phone. That's disrespectful.
That
I'm
was
so
just the
sorry,
thing I was
Ashley,
trying
because
at
you're
the moment,
definitely
too.
Ashley Long in my
As
phone.
I said, I already know. I've gotten used to it. I understand. But to your point, Delora, it's the basic man names that have popped up for me. There's been a couple Nicks, couple Mikes, couple Alexes, like definitely those basic names.
Oh, definitely
Where's Nick
Michael's.
coming
Yeah.
First of all,
Is Nick basic?
that's a basic
Mind
name
your
to me.
business. Mind
That's a
your
basic name to
Okay.
me.
All
He's about
right,
to ask me to don't have me putting people out here on the mic. I'm just giving a couple names. Okay.
Okay. All right.
But to answer my own question, it would probably be weird at first, but I think eventually you just like that person for who they are, separate
Absolutely.
from that situation. Yeah. So you get used to it, right? And you see he didn't make it a huge deal. Maddie
I have to say his coping mechanisms were top notch in this film. I don't know if he just buried them all. You know what I mean? And like to Johnny's point, you know, with the Liz dynamic, it just didn't really.
I just don't think they dwelled on it. I think they chose not to dwell on it. I'm sure he had his moments.
I love their back and forth banter, the way that they, you know, that was their way, their flirt language, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was really dope. Yeah.
Frank. I love that scene.
Yeah.
That was funny. When she said it real deep. Or Hank.
Hank. What I say? Frank? Lord.
Frank, yeah.
Hank.
Had a good night,
close.
Hank.
But then she was like, you want me to take out my false teeth or leave them in? Like, I love their whole little scenes were cute. Yeah.
And I don't know if you caught that was definitely a consent scene, something that I noticed more.
Yes. I'm going to kiss you
films.
now. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Which is a little, you can tell he tried to make it sexier than me, I kiss you. You know what I mean? But she was able to say yay or nay to that. So
he put that black man swag on it. Sorry if y'all heard me say ow, I just hit the crap out of my knee. But moving on. Moving on. Maddie has an accident at school that cuts open this child's whole forehead after she's forced to wear a skirt for the dress code policy at school and jumps off the jungle gym. Matt misses the calls, initially doing some grown-up things with Lizzie. Even though both he and Maddie have fallen for Lizzie, he breaks things off after this scene. So, guys, was the school at all at fault for Maddie's accident, or Matt for that matter, based on this whole dress code thing? Delora, I'll start with you. They kind of forced this child into a skirt. Y'all didn't call her dad? Okay.
Right. But I mean, according to them, they had been asking him, and then
he drove off
every morning. So maybe they were trying to send a message to him because he agreed to it initially when they signed her up. For me, why do you put that girl in boys' underwear? Like, I do understand you can do what you want and your kids may gravitate to certain things, but I hate that Black women's hair and appearances are always up for debate. But it's like, he didn't have a braider on lock. When I tell you, he should have had his community set up to where it's like, okay, you have, that way she could have had some feminine influences. I don't know. I do feel like it's ultimately his fault because he was asked repeatedly, and this is just a consequence of him not following the rules. And I'm not blaming the little girl for wearing boys' underwear. It just all accumulated poorly, at the same time.
In that scene. What about you, Johnny?
Well, when she put on the boys' underwear, I knew exactly what he could have been thinking. Oh, boys' underwear is going to cover you more than girls' underwear. So absolutely, let's go for it. So I didn't fault him because I probably would have done the same thing. Is the school at fault? Not at all. Playground accidents happen, especially,
Don't I know?
At this point, looked like she was trying to defend herself because they were teasing her. I do agree that they should have contacted the father and said, hey, we've tried to get you to put her into the school uniform. We have a skirt on hand. We're just going to go ahead and put her in this for now. You know, my wife went to a Catholic school, so skirt was part of her uniform. So, you know, watching that scene, that's what I thought about. But yeah, I wouldn't put the school at fault for this situation.
What'd you think about Matt, though?
I'm sorry?
What'd you think about Matt? Did you feel like Matt was all at fault?
Well, for the way he handled her being hurt, because he lost his wife, there's this feeling that, you know, when you have a child, you want them to have the same traditional upbringing you may have had, right? So he was like, okay, your mother's not around, you got hurt at school, this is on me, this is my fault. And he does this throughout the movie to where he claims his fault. And when you do that, what you expect everybody else to do is be like, okay, he's owning it, so let's step off of him. But that is just, you know, a defense mechanism to try to take the heat off of it. But you see that he realized later on in the film that you may not have the traditional upbringing, but you do have a community that's helping you raise your daughter, including the new Lizzie. You know, she was going to be part of that community to help you with your daughter. So were you at fault because she got teased? No, kids would have teased her about anything. Had she had on girls' underwear, they would have teased her about that.
For something else, yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say, oh, sorry.
I was gonna say I think he blamed himself too harshly than what he needed to.
Well, to me, it was definitely the guilt of, you know, doing adult things during the day.
For sure.
And then
not being there.
It's kind of like people with OCD is like, okay, so if I wash my hands before I walk out the door, you know, everybody's going to come home nice and safe. Like that doesn't really happen. But when you do something that you already feel some kind of way about, and then something bad happens as a result, it's like, oh, I knew I shouldn't have done this. I would, you know, he's feeling guilty for enjoying himself, you know what I mean? Like letting up.
I agree so strongly with points that both of you have made. Johnny, to your point, accidents are going to happen. She's a kid. You cannot protect her from everything, right? So whether it happened this day, another day, eventually you weren't going to be there, and, you know, she's a kid. Delora, to your point, he definitely felt like if I had not started dating someone and started living my life away from my daughter, I could have somehow prevented this and, you know, been there for her when she needed me and all this and that. So I think both of those points are super strong. I will say this, in this scene, I was thinking, Maddie, if you jump off of this jungle gym, you're going to bust your ass. And yes, you did. And you're a kid, and it is what it is. And hopefully you learned your lesson. But I just don't think I thought of it as like somebody's at fault, because I just thought of it as like, well, how many kids did we know back in elementary school, Johnny, at Bellhaven, who jumped their ass off of a jungle gym or doing something crazy? Or, I mean, I've injured myself. I've hit people in the face with stuff. You know, things happen when you're a child. So I felt sad. I did.
And Ashley,
I was rough and tumble. I was rough and tumble back in the day.
And Ashley, you know, there's a classmate that gets on my nerves to this day because she was always injured. Like, why you hurt every recess? It was annoying.
Because people are testing those boundaries at that age. You know what I mean? Like kids, to this day, one of the things that disturbs me is how reckless kids can be with their bodies. They will toss their asses off of anything. And it like terrifies me. Like I refuse to go to the skating rink with kids now because I'm like, your little bones will bounce. Mine will break, baby. And I ain't got time today. So the scene just saddened me because, to your point, Delora, I think he was so hard on himself, and breaking things off with Lizzie was not the move. Like I understand that you're reeling from this and the trauma, because we didn't talk about the fact this is his first time revisiting the hospital his wife passed in. So it was that trauma of like, I wasn't here for my wife when she needed me. Now I'm not here for my daughter when she needed me. That added on to that. But Matt, these things are gonna happen. She's a child. She's just a child.
So there's one more thing. So in that break, he kept repeating, it didn't happen to me. It didn't happen to me. So was he saying it should have happened to him? He would have rather it happened to him than his wife? Is that what he was saying in that moment?
I agree, Johnny, because I think it goes back to the very beginning where he has infant Maddie in his arms. He said, if you had one parent, I wish it could have been your mother. I think
Yeah.
he felt survivor's remorse throughout the entirety of the film.
Yeah.
For sure.
And to me, it was just hard to read in that moment. And obviously Swan was heartbroken.
I know, she was shedding tears.
Do you think it was redeemable though? Like, if someone had said that to you, Ashley, would you ever take them back?
Yes. And we're going to get there, but yes, because it's a traumatic situation. You have compassion and empathy for what he's going through, and the fact that this is the first relationship he's really trying to get back in. He's doing the best he can. He's traumatized by the scenario. So yeah, I mean, and I don't think he even handled it harshly. I just think he said, we're not ready. I mean, he said she's not ready, but really Matt wasn't ready, right? Because he was still trying to process and get past what had happened to his wife. So, you know.
Yeah. And I thought Lizzie did a great job in that scene, because as I'm watching her, I was getting the feeling that she's hurt, but she's also understanding that his words are coming from pain.
Exactly.
And that shined through the screen. Yeah.
She was top notch, which made it even harder, right? Because we're like, you letting the good one go. What are you doing?
Right.
What are you doing? She's amazing. So as we're wrapping up the film, Maddie longs to be close to family, and she asked to stay with her grandparents in Minnesota, which Matt actually allows briefly, feeling to our point about feeling guilty and all this stuff. He thought this was doing what was best for her. He says throughout the movie, I want to do what I feel like your mom would want me to do. And he's really questioning his parenting. In a conversation with Jordan, he says, I did the bare minimum. I kept her alive. I did the bare basics of what you do as a parent. Would you guys have agreed to let Maddie go for any period of time? What's the longest you go with your child living somewhere else? Johnny, you first.
Agree is hard, but I'll talk about it from the confines of this movie, because when I say that he got some wisdom from the father-in-law, this was the moment, because what resonated for me, getting ready to be a new parent, when he talked about, I don't know if I'm doing what's best for her or what's best for me, and I'm trying to figure that out. And the father-in-law goes, that's what, being a dad is all about. You're confused. You really don't know if your decision-making is in the best interest of your child. And you're thinking that you're trying to do that, and you're trying to, make sure that you're setting her up for a better life. And especially as hard as he was on himself and looking at the work that he's done, she's injured. I feel like a failure. So I'm going to honor her wishes of being around family. But in the end, she needs her dad too. So, whether it's an agreement, if I'm in that emotional situation, I probably would be like, okay, I have to be selfless, and thinking this is the best for my daughter, even if in the long run you come back and say it maybe was not. But again, this was an informative and educational film for myself. Ashley, we have a mutual friend that told me that this movie, even though his mother's or his child's mother is not deceased, he feels like a single father. So this spoke to him as well, because he feels like, this is my life too. Trying to make these decisions, what I think is the best for his son, rather. So yeah, in this moment,
how long?
How long has he been that way?
No, how long would you let your child stay somewhere?
Me personally, a week. But I've also thought about the ideas of like, okay, maybe, it may be beneficial if he spends, maybe some weeks in the summer with his grandparents where he's away from mom and dad. Yeah. I don't know, you just got to play those things, by ear as he grows up. But I learned about what's called helicopter parenting. And maybe Laura, you are familiar with this. Yes. So I learned about this from this film too, doing some research, and a lot of helicopter parenting, to where we think we need to monitor our child's every movement. And sometimes what that causes is not that they're going to abide by what we say, they're just not going to tell us. They're going to lie about it. So, maybe you have to, ease up a little bit.
Hopefully in that case, you've built a solid foundation with your kid to try to have some trust. Delora, what about you? Would you have agreed to this? And what's the longest you could go with Amara living somewhere else?
So for me, it just depends on the age. Like right now, at her age, I think she's too young to be gone anywhere for a long period of time. But if we're talking like around age 6, 7, I'm okay with a week during the summer. That's not a problem for me. Um, and his decision to let her stay, I to me, it wasn't clear how long he let her stay, because I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, they
is
didn't
he
give
is
a
he
strong indication.
given up altogether, or is this just something, again, like a winter vacation or a summer vacation? But I'm, again, being here where I live without either side of our families, and not having any close friends that live really close by. Before she went to preschool, I can count on my hands how often she wasn't with either me or Dave.
Yeah. Yeah.
On one hand, okay? So she has been very much a part of our lives. Like, once you get a kid, that, I mean, but that's what it is, though, right? That's what it is
Right.
to be a parent.
They are
right?
yours forever.
I do know people who have different stories, but that's just our story. So
Yeah, I think bringing up the
Do you
age is legit, but I will say this. I'll report back to y'all, but I'm gonna say this. No, me as I stand, I worry too much about the world more so than even about what my child would do. I worry about how the world is going to affect my kid. And especially like knowing that molestation happens a lot of times for people within their own families and all this and that. Like, I would be very uncomfortable with my kids spending any prolonged period of time under anybody else's roof without me. And that's just point blank, period.
And I feel you on that. With having nephews, I'm that uncle to where it's like I need to see where they at. Where you at on the playground? And I tell my brother all the time. I said, we were walking home from school as first graders. I would have a panic attack if I just knew my first grader was walking home by herself to the house.
And that's so generational, because imagine like our parents felt like they had even more freedom back in the day, and then we had a little less, but the world is scarier. The world is just a scarier place.
The world is just as scary. I do feel like it's just as scary. I think the issue is because there's nothing new under the sun, right? So for me, I feel like we have verbiage, we have a level of communication with social media that highlight the dangers that so many people kept to their chest all these years.
I think certain things have escalated, but I get your point. I get your overall point. So by the film's end, Matt's been promoted to succeed his boss at work. Big things. Maddie is back in Boston because, to y'all's point, he ain't leaving his child. Okay, he brought her ass back. And Lizzie Dose gives Matt a second chance. Oh, and in end credits, that Catholic school dress code, they changed it. So we get to see a lovely scene of Kevin Hart wearing a skirt. Any final thoughts that y'all have on fatherhood before we get out of here? Johnny, as our special guest, give me any final thoughts you have, sir.
Well, yes. So number one, Kevin Hart caught a lot of flack for wearing that skirt. He caught a lot of heat, and in watching the movie and finding out that was ending credits, everybody looks crazy for giving him hell for that, especially in the context of him just being in dress code, so that way his daughter,
supporting,
it was just
being a supportive dad.
Exactly. Final thoughts for me. Again, my perspective and vantage point is probably a lot different because I am preparing to be a father. So I walked away, with a lot of, information and things to look out for. But at the end, I agree with you. It didn't wow me. And again, maybe that could be because they tried to stay true to the book. I expected some twists and turns. The thing that I really appreciate the most is that I love watching Black people on film just existing. Not a lot of drug dealing, crime, gangster this, gangster that. We just existed in the world. We found love, and we raised a daughter. It was just great to see.
Great point, Johnny. What about you, Delora? Final thoughts?
I loved the cast. The Liz 1 was gorgeous. That baby.
Liz 1.
That baby was so cute. And then, Maddie all the kids, the whole family, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Like Johnny said, seemed like people on screen just living mundane lives. I'm here for it because that's what we're doing.
Yeah. We're just
exactly
human beings. We're just human beings.
Exactly. And yeah, I love Lil Rel, so it was really fun to see him in this film. And
the scene where he started tearing up when she was taking her first steps. Oh, there's somebody cutting onions. I'm like, that was probably one of my
there's
favorites.
Nothing wrong with expressing how you feel, right?
Yeah, that was
what
wonderful.
About you, Ashley?
Well, I appreciate you guys' finals. My final is really just, again, it may not have wowed me, but Kevin, keep doing these types of films because I can tell you, I definitely enjoy seeing you in these more than some of the straight up comedy. So keep it up. Look forward to seeing your next project. And guys, if that's it, that is our recap of Fatherhood. Johnny, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
Thanks for having me.
Ashley, are you ready for the hidden gems?
I am.
You go first.
All right, this week I have 2 hidden gems. My first one is Good Omens on Amazon. Delora, this is a show I watched a minute ago, girl, but I made it a hidden gem because I just read an article that they're finally green-lighting to do a season 2. So season 1 dropped back in 2019. Loved it. The basic
actor. Love him.
The basic premise was an angel and a demon who are fond of living on Earth team up to stop Armageddon. It is so humorous. To your point, Michael Sheen and David Tennant, who star in it, have such great chemistry. And as we always talk about, we love the fantastical types of series. So it fell in line for me with that, with just this, biblical twist on it. So I loved it. Good Omens season 1 is currently on Amazon Prime. My second hidden gem, it's been a couple of weeks, but I had to do it. Her Back in My Mind album, my girl. This is her sophomore album. This album had to grow on me though, Delora. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was not feeling it at first, except maybe like 2 songs. But you know what I blame? I blame my listening forum, because I was listening, or my listening device rather, I was listening on my phone speaker because I was not at home for a couple of weeks. So I was out of town. So once I got home, I was able to listen. Y'all know the best time. Yep. The best speaker is your car speakers. Absolutely. So once I got that good car listen, once I listened to it on my Bluetooth in my house, loved it, fell in love with it. I listen to it every single day. My favorite songs right now are Closer to Me, Don't, Exhausted, all those like slower R&B joints on there. And then my absolute fave right now is For Anyone. So solid drop from my current favorite artist, Her. And those are my hidden gems.
Thank you, Ashley. So I have 2 this week, both albums. The first, Maroon 5. In one of our recent podcasts, I mentioned that Maroon 5 was my very first album I bought by myself. And honestly, the first album is the best from them, frankly, because they actually were trying to be a rock band. Ever since they've been on the pop train, the money flows on the pop train, and they're amazing. So their new album, Jordi, is named after their late manager and best friend, Jordan Fieldstein, who is Jonah Hill's older brother, actually. He died unexpectedly from a blood clot. And it's actually a somber album. Even the poppier up-tempo songs, you can hear a bit of sadness in Adam's voice. But it's still really good because I feel like it's a reflection of what we came out of with 2020 and the pandemic and all the loss.
That makes sense.
But this album features the single Beautiful Mistakes, featuring the Stallion, Meg the Stallion.
You sound like my uncle. My uncle's always like, have you heard that new song from the Stallion? And I'm like, you mean Meg?
I really enjoy Echo, which is track 3. Girl, they got a song with the legendary Stevie Nicks, which I lost my sugar honey iced tea over, called Remedy. They have a song with Her, which is so good, called Convince Me Otherwise.
Now that I will be listening to.
solid record. Honestly, frankly, one of my favorite listen through records by them in a long time, frankly. And so yeah, so that's that. And then my second album, Hidden Gem, Doja Cat, someone who was canceled earlier, but she's super talented. She's super talented. Like her live performances during the pandemic solidified her star for me. There's pop girls who can't dance on stage like she does. So this new album, Planet Her, it's gonna win her something. I feel like it is a solid project. Again, an entire album, good to listen to all the way through. I love how borderline crazy she is, if you know what I mean. You know, favorite records on this album would be Woman, track 1. Love it, love it. It's giving me like Afro beats feels. Like I just feel like shaking my hips and drinking a pina colada. She has a song called Need to Know, really good. She also has a song with Ariana Grande called I Don't Do Drugs, which is true for my life as well. So, and of course, Kiss Me More featuring SZA, which is her current hit. So highly recommend these two projects. They're genuinely good to listen through all the way through. So, and that's it, Ashley.
Nice. Well, guys, we appreciate you listening as always. Thank you to our special guest, Johnny Wheel, for joining us today. Be sure to, do all the things that we generally ask you to do. Follow us, tell your friends and family, and we so look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.